Musicians often do more than one job to make ends meet. Today's guest has been involved in country music as both a recording artist and an actor for 30 years. But today he runs a search house which does corporate name searches for anyone wishing to incorporate a company. He has some very interesting stories to tell about both of these areas, so stay tuned for Careers. Hi, I'm Peter Wolfl, and this is Careers. We're about to meet Russs Wheeler, a wheeler and a dealer, a country musician, an actor, and a businessman, all in one. His company called Searchland was started by accident more than by choice, but today he has agents across Canada, the United States, and overseas. Welcome, Russ.
Hello, Peter.
Before we talk about Searchland, let's first talk a bit about your former career as an entertainer. What was it like to be a country musician? What kind of life did you lead?
Well, it's like any business, I suppose. You have good times, you have bad times. As I say, you have rich times and lean times. But if I had to do over, I'd do it again.
What motivated you even to get into that area in the first place?
Well, I guess it started when I was very, very small. I was born in New Brunswick. And of course, country music back then, but as you know it today, didn't exist. It was more Hank Snow, Wilf Carter, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And my ambition was always to be on stage, play a guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where it all started.
What parts did you play? Were you in a band, or was
back then I
musical
just had an
shows?
old guitar that my brother bought from Eaton's. I think it was 1995, and I didn't have no chords. I had an old book that he had, and I learned the chords, and I banged away on the guitar for parties and things like that. And when I joined the Air Force, I did a few amateur shows while in the Air Force. I come out of the Air Force and went back to Frederick, New Brunswick, where I participated in a lot of amateur
Mm-hmm.
contests. And I sang with Earl Mitten, which was one of the big fiddle players of Canada. And he had his own band. I did a lot of shows with him. And just this type of thing.
Now, were you usually singing as a soloist?
Usually then, yes. I never formed a band till I came to Ontario. I came up here and met a few other musicians, and we formed a little band and started out.
Oh,
From then on in, it was pretty well history.
great. So you were always a guitarist and a singer?
Well, I don't know if you call me a guitarist. I chord and play songs, yes.
Oh,
I
super.
left it up to the musicians to do the work.
And who were Russs Wheeler and the Echo Valley Boys?
That was one of the first bands I had up here. Why we come up with the Echo Valley Boys, I don't know. It was just in them days, everybody was Valley Rhythm Boys or the Spruce Log Boys and things like this. So I used to come up with the Echo Valley Boys and stuck with that for a while until everything began to change around and change musicians. I guess when I got on the road, everything went completely different.
Did you write the songs also?
I wrote a lot of songs, yes. Not back then I didn't. I wrote some, but I never really sang many of my own till I did my first recording, which was with Rodeo Records back in them days. But
How did you get into recording?
it was kind of, we wanted to do a demo tape, and we went to a radio station in Brampton, and we knew the announcers from doing guest shots on radio back in them days, which was big rather than TV. And we went in there and cut a demo tape, and we sent it into Rodeo Records at the time. And before we knew it, he had already pressed it and put it out. It wasn't a very good cut, but the record was
Isn't
out.
that something? All in advance without
All in
even knowing.
advance without even knowing it. And that's the way half of my career has been. It's just fallen in my lap for whether I'm a good guy or God likes me, I don't know. Whatever.
Because to get into the recording business is pretty difficult nowadays, isn't it?
Yes, it was then. I don't know. I just, like I say, I got to know the people that were around the recording studios and the bands that backed the other people that were recording. And
Mhm.
I did an awful lot of bluegrass, which was big in them days. And apparently I was pretty good at it, so I got they got the old banjos picking and hammering away, and I used to sing there. And the first thing I knew, I was doing radio appearances.
Would you say that the whole country music business is different today than it
Oh,
was
definitely.
several years ago?
Definitely. Roy Rogers' day and Gene Autry and them are over. It's all gone, well, I guess they say gone uptown. It's more country, country pop, country rock. In them days it was country, it was just strictly tear jerkers and that. Today it's changed around a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Russ, you've done a number of recordings in your career. Have you had any success?
Yes, I've had a couple. One was Chaser for the Blues, which was written by Ben Kerr from Toronto.
In fact, isn't that the song that you're going to be performing for us tonight?
I'm going to try.
Okay,
It's called
great.
Performing or whatever. It hit under the top 50 on the Billboard, across Canada hit parade, RPM. It was written up in Billboard and Cashbox in the States, so it did pretty good for us. I wouldn't dare complain.
Oh, great. What's some of the background or history behind the song?
Well, this song was originally recorded by a fellow by the name of Bernie Early, and I kind of liked it. And I finally did meet the gentleman that wrote it, Ben Kerr. And what we were doing when we started performing it before I recorded it, we'd go on stage, and the chaser, as we call it for the blues, was milk.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had the Milk Board of Ontario quite interested in this idea that I was drinking milk in bars, which is quite an unusual thing. But I always had my jug of milk. Stompin' Tom always had his jug of water from Skinner's Pond. I had my jug of milk, and every time I'd sing the song, I always had this glass of milk and drink it. And I got so a lot of places I played in the clubs, when they wanted the song, someone would go and get a glass of milk and bring it up to me on stage, and that was my cue to do the song, whether I was ready for it or not.
It became a real gimmick.
It became a gimmick, a real gimmick, and it was written up a lot in a lot of the music papers and the local papers where I performed this crazy thing, as they called it.
Okay, once more, what's the name of the song?
Chaser for the Blues.
Okay. Here's Russs Wheeler singing Chaser for the Blues.
You ask me why I'm all alone tonight, just sitting in this tavern getting tight. I've got nothing else to do since my baby said we're through. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. 'Cause I've got a lot of heartaches I've got to lose. If I have another drink, then I'll be too drunk to think. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. As I sit here on this bar stool getting stoned, I think about the place I once called home. It's so quiet and so still, that loveless mansion on the hill. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. 'Cause I've got a lot of heartaches I've got to lose. If I have another drink, then I'll be too drunk to think. Oh, bartender, another chaser for the blues. I said, bartender, another chaser for the blues.
Thank you, Russ. That was really good. Do you find it difficult to play without having a backup band behind you?
No, not really. It's different. But when I first started out, I used to play just myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've even done a few weddings and things where I just go in and play, so
Now,
it is different, but I don't mind it.
When you would normally have done this in a bar, let's say, you would have had a backup band
Oh
behind
yes,
you.
definitely.
And what kind of backup band would that have been? How many pieces?
Normally 4. We have lead guitar, bass, drums, and rhythm.
Okay. And quite often your wife was the one playing the bass, I understand.
Yes, she played bass and she sang, gave me good harmony. So it worked out great. Her brother played lead guitar for me. I even had my youngest daughter play drums for a while,
Mm-hmm.
until she decided to go somewhere and do like university. So, and she didn't care much for the bars anyway, so she got right away from it.
So did you have to do a lot of traveling around?
At first, yeah, I traveled very extensively. And that was before my wife started playing bass or singing.
Did you ever go out of the country?
Oh, I down into the States quite a bit and across Canada pretty well.
So how did your wife like touring with you?
Well, it was good, except we had to leave our 2 kids, of course, when we were doing all the traveling, which was hard. One of the reasons why we decided to pack it in and stay closer to home.
You joined the American Federation of Musicians.
Yes.
What kind of benefits did that give you?
Well, you couldn't really do too much professional like radio, TV, or recordings without it. A lot of us, I say, myself included, and some of the others, we did make recordings. It wasn't impossible to make the recordings. But if they started to get big, then of course the musicians would say to the union, hey, these guys are not union and they're out there playing the records, so we either had to join or they say to the radio stations, you can't play these. So your hands were tied.
And all of a sudden, Russs Wheeler, the country singer, becomes an actor. How did you get into that?
Well, it was kind of accidentally. I think everything I did was accidentally. I was always very interested in movies and TV and that, and I had a little business where I had some typists, girls typing that did resumes and that, and in the same building there was a talent agency I should say, and I met a lot of them by doing the resumes for the actors and actresses, and they said, well, with your background, why don't you try acting? I said, me? They said, yeah. Well, they bugged me, and finally I phoned up one of the agents that handled extras and all this kind of things, and told him what I looked like. He didn't believe me. But anyway, he phoned me back that night. They were doing a movie up in Kleinburg and said, why don't you come on out? And I said, sure, and after that it just seemed to from one to the other, one to the other, yeah.
Have you had any speaking
started
parts?
out as an extra, then I did do some talking parts in it too.
Oh.
So you never know what'll happen when you get there.
So what were some of the highlights from that particular part of your life?
Well, I met Chris Christopherson. I did a bit in the movie with him, America, which I was the face and the flag, plus I did a policeman. And I did one with Bob Dylan, where I was a construction engineer, and I stood at a bar and drink with him, you know, had a couple of drinks and talked to him for a minute. In them days I was good at drinking. And, oh, I don't know, I did a few comedy parts, and I used to do a bit of stunt riding way back when. So I did a few motorcycle jumps and rolled a few cars and things like this. And I know, just had a ball.
You just said that you used to be very good at drinking in those days. In fact, you told me before the show that a lot of actors or people who are country musicians as you were drink quite a bit. What kind of problems did you have?
Well, we can't blame it just on country. Any entertainer, I think, you're around alcohol so much in the nightclubs, and everyone says, well, let's have a drink with me, I'll buy you a drink, and you do, and I found
you feel obliged socially.
Yeah, you feel obliged socially, but also I found that I became so that I could drink an awful lot without having any reaction to it. And I got to where I was drinking, say, 40, 60 ounces of whiskey a day with water, never even mixed it with pop, and
it
was
didn't
a daily,
affect you?
and it never affected me. I used to do my work without it, and people wouldn't believe that I was drinking. But my wife and my kids knew it. I didn't cause any problems at home, like fighting or beating my family or anything.
And your liver knew
And
it?
they stuck with me. My liver knew it, my kidneys knew it, and the doctors knew it. They told me, you know, it was getting bad. As a matter of fact, they told me a couple of doctors were betting how many times I'd go in the hospital and come back out. I was that far gone.
Oh, boy.
And I tried AA, it wouldn't work. So I phoned my doctor one day and told him to put me in the hospital. He said, what for? I said, I'm going to drive myself out. He said, you'll never make it. He put me in. 10 days later, I walked out, and I've never had a drink since. He don't believe it. My family don't believe it. My friends don't believe it. They try to get me a drink, and I said,
Just
nope.
cold turkey.
Same way I quit smoking. I did a video on that, trying to tell young teenagers and that the bad habits of smoking. Now I'd like to do one
Did you used
on
to smoke
alcohol
heavily
abuse
as
if
well?
I could. Oh, I was smoking 3 packs a day when I quit. I was coughing in the mornings, and I couldn't sing properly on stage. It had an awful effect, naturally, that much.
Didn't you
So
go
I
through,
just up and bingo quit the same way.
Didn't you go through some withdrawal symptoms or anything like that?
I felt it, but the doctors actually were quite surprised that I come out of it as easy as I did. They watched me very close, and they said they couldn't believe that I come out of it. It was, I guess, more, he said, determination in the mind than anything else, that I wanted to quit on my own, and that's exactly how I did it. And I had very little shakes. I never got sick. I never had a hangover anyway, even when I was drinking. I guess I wasn't sobered up long enough to get a hangover. Maybe, I don't know. If I had a headache, I'd take a drink and that would stop it. But no, I come out of it very easily. They thought I would really have convulsions or something, but no, I walked away from it I was very lucky, really. Walk away from it as easy as I did. It wasn't easy, you know. The first year I had to stay away from nightclubs and people that drank, because it was always there, and not that I was scared, I was just afraid that I might go back drinking again.
Overall, how did this type of business affect your family life? I mean, we all hear about the high divorce rate in the entertainment business.
Well, like I say again, I was very lucky. My family stuck by me. I guess a lot of times it was hard. My wife was more to say to keep the family together, because I think the girls maybe would have left me, you know, would have moved out. But she was always saying, well, look, your dad's all right, he's not hurting nobody, and except himself, and she stuck by me and saw me through it all. And
well, it sounds like you had a lot of fun, though, during your entertainment days.
But don't forget, back them days, too, I was 240 pounds.
Really?
I did a little bit of wrestling, professional wrestling, but that didn't appeal to me too much, because you got to be a better actor than I was to do it. And probably in a lot better shape at that time, too.
Do you have any regrets about not having gone further on in your country music career?
Oh, yes, I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. I feel I could have gone a lot further if I'd have kept on with the determination I had at several points. I would have gone a lot further. I had the ability. I was liked by the crowd, so they tell me, and whatever I was doing whatever they liked. I don't know. I didn't feel I had much telling, but as long as they kept wanting it, I kept going and doing it.
Okay, great.
So what do you do?
We're going to take a short break right now, but when we return, we'll be back with Russs Wheeler, and he's going to tell us about his present career, which is the founder and president of Searchland Incorporated. Stay tuned. We're back with Russs Wheeler, a former country musician who today is a businessman and runs a company called Searchland. Russ, tell us about Searchland and how you started it and what it does.
Well, Searchland is exactly what it says. It's Search Land, but it's Search House. This is the proper name, I guess. It happened kind of by accident. I was driving a car, and a friend downtown that did the same type of work. We were rear-ended, and she was hurt pretty bad with whiplash. I guess I felt a little guilty, even though it wasn't my fault. It was proved by the police, like, you know. And I went to her office to help answer the phones, and I didn't know nothing about a search out. I didn't know what a microfiche was or anything else. And I started answering the phones, and then gradually, I guess it worked around to where I was starting to learn things.
Just by trial and error?
Trial and error. I was lucky there wasn't too many errors, believe me. I was very lucky. But she was always usually where I could get to her by phone, ask her, what do I do with this? How can I help? I'd run up the street and order them, run back, and take the phone off the hook so it sounded busy. And I kind of got the drift of it, and I figured, hey, you know, this doesn't look too bad. So I incorporated a company, and I kind of set over a little. That was Searchland. And finally, I decided, well, I'm going to take a whack at it.
But it was such a big change from your former life.
Well, yes, it is. It's a big change.
Why did you want to give all that up?
I don't know. At the time, like I say, I'd quit drinking, and I didn't want to do show business for a while. I figured, well, this will tide me over, and it tied me over a lot better than I thought. Because it's gone straight uphill, shouldn't say uphill in the sense it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And legally, I guess what we do, we cater mostly to the legal professions. You say a search house, where you said it just does name searches for people who want to incorporate. That's a very small bit of it.
Is it?
We do corporate searches, we do car lien searches, debenture searches, title searches, just about any kind of search, except we don't search for people, but we have people that will. We have associates that will do that.
Right, right.
We now are associated with a process service from Hamilton, which is going to open up an office with us. And we have agents across the States and Canada where a lot of people from, say, Vancouver want a search done in Ontario. They phone us and have them done, and maybe someone in the States, we've had this happen quite often out of states like California, New York, New Jersey, have heard about us somehow, even though we do very little advertising. And they phone us to get a search done in Vancouver. So the people out there that we do them for, they do ours out there. And this is how it started, and then it's just mushroomed.
So they've called you in order to be your agent? Because they can't do the search themselves.
Well, we're also their agent too, you see.
I see. It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. We do theirs and they do ours.
So just for the people at home here who may not know this, a company that wants to incorporate has to have a name search.
That's right. And they say you can do it without, you cannot incorporate without a nuance, is the professional name for it. you have to have that 5-page printout to take to the ministry to incorporate, because that tells you if there's any incorporations with the same name or close to it, too close, infringing on it. And if they do, they won't incorporate it. So you have to have it. We do, like we say, company. It can be federal. It can be Ontario. We do trademark searches too, which is the same thing. We can find out if there's any liens on cars, all these kind of searches.
And how much would a search cost, typically?
Well, it varies through the industry. We don't really play competition to anybody. We have our own prices, and we try and keep them as reasonable as possible. And it is paying off, because a lot of our publicity, like I say, we don't do a lot of advertising in papers and that. A lot of it's carried by word of mouth and that. And people say, well, his price is good or better than theirs, and we turn them over fast, which a lot of the bigger ones, I guess maybe because of volume, they don't get them done as fast. They basically run in the $40 area, above or below.
What about trademark searches?
They're the same. We do them for the same price.
Okay. Don't you have to go to Ottawa to do that?
No. Depends on what kind of search you're doing. Basically, they're all done by computer through Ottawa. All of them are done through Ottawa.
Okay.
But see, I'm online to Ottawa, so I put in the computer at night, I get them out in the morning.
So you had to become quite a computer expert, too.
Not really. I never was much of computers, but I know enough that I can put name searches in and take them out. It's like typing a letter, really. You type it in, the computer up there reads it, puts it through the memory, brings out all the ones that are close to it, and next morning when you go back in there, put your codes in it, they all print out on your printer.
Did it cost you a lot of money to get this business started?
Well, I started
intensive.
kind of meanly, really. I didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I bought what was necessary, some of it used, some of it new, or some of it on time, and some I rented. And today I owe very little. I am in very good shape. I've made a real good living. I paid off all my debts.
Super.
The company maybe owes $3,000 or $4,000, that's it.
So it really has changed your lifestyle.
It has. I miss the show business end of it, but it really has.
But isn't it nice to have a steady paycheck?
Oh, yes. I always had a steady paycheck anyway.
Oh, did you?
I never could say that show business was bad to me that way. I was lucky, I guess, in some senses maybe, where I always had a job or a place I could go if I needed to get a job. I never was that way.
Okay, Russ, back to Searchland. How do you promote your business to get new customers?
Well, we do very little promotion, really. Most of it is word of mouth. Companies like what we do. We do the work, like I say, fairly quick. And we try and do this in depth as possible. Well, we could, but I feel that right now, if I advertised, the work would come in faster than I would be able to handle it, and that could damage you sometimes more. I'd rather grow kind of slowly and add staff as I go. I've just added 2 new girls, and if it keeps the way it's going now, by the summer I'll probably have to add more. So I have a lady with me that's very good. She's 30-year senior law clerk. She's been in the business 30 years. She's senior law clerk. She's independent now, and she keeps on top of everything. All the new laws coming out, or the new changes, the new prices and all. The ministry is always changing them. And even a lot of the lawyers, I guess they're too busy, they can't keep on top of it. They'll phone up and say, ask Elizabeth, how does this done, or is there new forms out or whatever. She does an awful lot of title searches on her own and for me.
Now, you've had some offers, I believe, to buy out your company.
I have had several good offers, yeah.
Now, if you decide not to sell out, what are your plans for
Well, if I don't sell out, it's a matter of expanding. And if I do stay in, it'll be, I think, quite serious of opening a couple of small offices in other locations, maybe Hamilton or something like this, out of town. Because we do have a lot of business out there.
Some
and I
other
think we
branches.
could probably, we'll branch out there. We could take care of that business, plus add to it from further out even then.
As a franchise, that kind of thing? Or
No, I wouldn't franchise it. No, I don't think so. I would have somebody run them for me.
But it'd be your company.
But it would still be mine. Franchise, I guess, are good. I don't know. But I think that's getting a little over my head.
But I've got this feeling that you're really more interested in maybe getting out of this business and back to showbiz.
Oh, show business is it. It gets in your blood, you can't get out. It's like truck driving, I guess.
So if you do sell it, if you get a good deal, what are you going to do then?
Well, I'll go back to some kind of show business. I hope to do maybe get into movies in a small way. I'll probably never make it big, but I'd just like being around it. Maybe doing a bit of television or something, whatever I can find to do. Somebody out there must like me enough to give me a job.
I'm sure they do. Russ, thank you for joining us on Careers.
It's my pleasure.
I'm Peter Wolfl, and from all of us here at the studio, good luck in your own career.